around the Philly hoops. Jay, you're obviously familiar with Chris Holtmann, and he's gotten you a few times at Butler and the one at Ohio State. What does a Chris Holtmann team do so well?
A lot of things. That's what makes them so good. They're very disciplined, very intelligent offensively and defensively, and very physical. That's what I would say. Probably, the best three things: disciplined, intelligent, and physical.
Mike Jensen, Philadelphia Inquirer. Jay, you don't just flip a switch and win the Big East and be sitting here right now. I mean, after the Creighton loss, the Baylor loss, and even going as far as losing a couple to Marquette, what had to get better from an X&O point of view?
Just a lot of little things, Mike. Like just figuring out our personnel, like where Eric Dixon fits in, where Caleb Daniels fits in. And like a lot of teams this year, honestly, and I think Ohio State is a very similar situation. We had things going on like injuries. I think I told you about viruses, COVID. We never really, during the season, got a good rhythm going, and I think towards the end of the year, we got everybody healthy. I think we got Jordan Longino going. That helped us a lot. We got our bench going. So it was a lot of little things. It wasn't anything major. But I look at this Ohio State team, I think like they were playing really good for a while, and then they got injuries to Young, to Key. Now they get that team back together. They look like a big-time team again, and I hope we do.
Can we get a Dwayne Anderson injury update, please?
Yeah. We're checking on concussion. We're checking him, but we think he's pretty good. Nose does not look good, but he says, his wife's a doctor. She says, if it's broken, it's broken. Nothing you can do about it. She's tough. Yeah, he'll be here today.
Hey, Jay, Matthew Ryan from City of Basketball Love. Obviously, the tournament for you guys has been, in recent years, I think 6 out of the last 7, you've either lost in the second round or won the national championship. What about the second round is so difficult, and what about getting over that hump kind of leads you guys to carry in that momentum for the final 2 weekends?
The tournament is so much about matchups. It really is, and I get it. Like you guys do a good job. You have to do your job of going through those stats, either second round or national championship. We look at it more like we've just run into really good teams, in the second round, and I think it's happened again. But you can look at last year. North Texas was an upset winner over Purdue in the second round, and we faced them, so that was a little different, right? Like this team, if they would have been healthy towards the end of the season, I think they lost their last 4 out of 5, but if they would have had their guys together, this would have been a 2 or 3 seed, I think. So we just happened to run into a really good team again. But when you're in the NCAA tournament, if you get to the second round, it doesn't matter what your seed is. You get to the second round, you're playing a great team.
Mike Sealski from the Philadelphia Inquirer.
And Michael?
Hey, Gerald. Chris talked a little bit about the difference between coaching in the Big East and the Big Ten. I'm curious, and you've talked at length about the Big East being a basketball-first conference. How much do you use that, if at all, in finding the kind of kids you want to bring into your program? Is there a way to know if if that matters to a kid, like a basketball-first kind of thinking in terms of the conference and the setting?
That's an interesting question. I think there are certain kids in the Midwest, when we recruit in the Midwest, for instance, which we don't a lot, but Jalen Brunson. If you grow up in the Midwest, you're kind of a Big Ten guy. That's your idea of college athletics. Those huge schools, and that's the reason we don't go out there a lot. Because if you think that college is Ohio State, and you come and visit Villanova, that's a whole other world, right? It's not even. It looks like a high school compared to that. So I think there are kids that think of themselves as Big Ten kids, and we Jalen's school in Illinois was one of his final schools, but he was an East Coast kid. You know, he was living in Chicago, but he grew up in Jersey and Philly. So it's more that we look at kids that think of college as an East Coast private school type of experience. That's more what we look at.
Paul Keels from WBNS Radio Columbus. Jay, you mentioned the physicality about Ohio State. What are the other things that concern you about what they're able to do when they have everybody available?
With their team as it is now, their balance, putting Kyle Young back in there just makes everybody better. And then bringing Key back gives them depth, which makes everybody better. Everybody's more fresh. You can play bigger and play with more size when you need to. Young allows you to do both and allows all those guards, because he can make plays for his teammates and he can score himself, he can post up, and he's a great defender. So I think adding those two guys just expands their depth and their bench, and it also makes everybody better at every position.
Hey Jay, Colin Beasley from the Villanovan. How surprised have you been by Jermaine's recovery from his back spasms, or is it something that you just completely expect from Jermaine, knowing how tough he is?
No, I'm really. I was shocked in the tournament. To see in the Big East tournament, I was shocked that he did what he did. Now I know he has had this before, so I know it's back spasms. Some of us have had that before. Once we got our chiropractor and our team masseuse with him, I thought by NCAA tournament time he'd be okay. I never thought he'd be able to play in the Big East like he did.
Yeah, Johnny McGonigal with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Jay, going back to the second round question, one of those losses was 2015, was here to NC State. That ended kind of a decent little run after the 2009 Final Four of early tournament exits. Did you take anything from a macro sense from that experience and apply it going forward, or was it more of a micro thing with the matchup with NC State?
Definitely more of a micro thing. Like that team was a highly successful team during the year. They'd beaten Duke by 20. They'd beaten Carolina. They'd beaten Louisville. That was a really talented team. And but they had stumbled some, so they didn't get a great seed. It's comparable. The Ohio State team just dealt with injuries and COVID. But that happens. It happens in the tournament. And like I said, you can't complain about that or worry about it, because when it happens the other way, you don't use that as your reason for advancing. So I just look at it like, when you get to this second round, you're going to play a great team one way or the other. One year we were a 1 seed in Philly, and we got an Arizona team in the second game that was an 8 seed. That was ridiculous. They were outstanding. And I think they had 4 pros on that team. And we survived that one. So it's matchups, and it's how you play that day.
Hey, Coach. Tristan Freeman from Fanside's Best in Brackets. When you lose Jeremiah Robinson Earl, Kobe's biggest player of the year, and Eric Dixon's his sort of replacement in lineup, was there a moment this year where you've seen his growth and potential, and you could say to yourself that he could be a starting caliber player on a national title contending team this year?
Yeah, Eric's made some great strides, and he continues to get better every day. Probably he had a great game against Connecticut at home, against Sonogo, their big guy. I think he had Michael, anybody, 24 and 12. And, when he did that against Sonogo, you're thinking, all right, what you think is his potential is real, right? Now you got to do that consistently night in and night out.
Jay, Will Graves, Associated Press, the best AP sports writer in Pennsylvania, not Dan Gelston. Next time you see him, make sure you tell him I said that. A quick question about Liddell. What challenges does he provide? And it seems like there's a versatility to his game that maybe you don't really find in a lot of scorers and guys that are asked to do what he does.
Yeah, I think that's the key word, versatility. He's as good as anybody in the low post, not just scoring, but passing out of there. I mean, they actually run cuts where they throw it to him in the post, and they run screening action, and he's picking the cutter or the screener, and then he can face up on the perimeter, and just ISO you, hit step back threes. That's a pro. I show our guys, we show film like that. Everyone says this guy's a pro, that guy's a pro. Like, that's a pro, and he's a shot blocker too, and the leading rebounder, right? So that's a basketball player. He's just a basketball player. He's going to be a handful.
Jay, when you look at Eric and you look at EJ and you see Eric, and I go back to the UCLA game where it seemed like he was switched on to their guards every possession. And EJ is such an inside-outside player. He can get you from both sides. Do you feel like Eric is more, I guess, prepared for the inside-outside big threat rather than just the post-dominant big guy?
God, I hope so. I hope so. This guy, EJ's he's a rare breed. He really is. Eric's got matched on some guys that are really good perimeter guys, and he's got to take away certain things, and then he's got matched on guys who are really good post players. I don't know, and I don't mean to insult anybody. I just haven't thought. He reminds me of Eric Paschal, who played for us. I know how valuable that was to us. I don't know if he's been matched on somebody that can take him into both spots, the perimeter and inside, and still be effective.
Jay, Chris said that he's stolen a lot of stuff from you. He said he's got an assistant who kind of is the guy on footwork and jump stops. And we've written a lot of, obviously, Arch to Brunson to the current guys on going inside. But I'm curious, who'd you steal from on sort of no floaters and things like that?
I've stolen a lot of things from a lot of people. That stuff, all that footwork stuff, more came from watching our games, and trying to figure out what really affects winning and losing. Like, what were the plays that affected winning and losing, and then what do we need to do to eliminate those mistakes? So that stuff. I can't remember. I just know it came down to more what we were doing. If you remember our early years, we turned the ball over a lot. Like, what were we doing that was affecting winning and losing? And a lot of times it was turnovers or shot selection. And how do you teach that? And a lot of the ways we teach that is footwork.
Hey, Jay, Bill Landis from The Athletic. I'm just wondering what your impressions are of Malachi Branham and some of the challenges he will present you guys tomorrow.
He's a stud. He's a really skilled player with great length and quickness, right? So he's long enough that he can use his quickness to get you to the rim and score over you. He's skilled enough that if you give him too much space, he'll drill a three. Really mature as a player for a freshman. He's going to be a handful also.
Jerry DePaul, Pittsburgh Tribune Review. Jay, considering all the crazy things that happened in the tournament, your neighbor to the east, St. Peter's, beating Kentucky, and Chattanooga almost won last night. Are there more good high school basketball players than there ever has been? And maybe is it also a product of the transfer portal? Maybe.
I think this year, the good teams are because of the transfer portal and and COVID. Guys staying the extra. You're seeing the mid majors with a lot of older guys, and you're seeing the Big Five programs with older guys too. And I just think it's just making for a better brand of basketball all along. And I think the impact of NIL with the transfer portal is going to eventually, when we get it all figured out, is going to benefit college basketball. Because I think guys in the past that have had to leave early because they just had to do it for their families are going to be able to make money and stay. And you're going to see older players playing. If you remember back in the old Big East when I remember Patrick Ewing going against Ralph Sampson, you know, the Virginia-Georgetown game, and those guys would have never been in college these days. You might see that again in college basketball. I think it's going to be great for college basketball.
Jay, the Big East went 3-3 in the first round of the NCAA tournament. What have you made of the league's performance, and what's your pitch to Villanova fans who have been rooting against the Big East all season to start rooting for the Big East teams?
I love when you get to tournament time because we all root for each other. The Big East coaches, we all text each other. Connecticut looked tired to me. The Big East tournament can wear you out. It really can. It's a blessing. It's a curse. And matchups. You know, you get the wrong matchup. I don't mean to minimize all the strategy that goes into this tournament, but if you catch a hot team or you get a bad matchup, you're done. That's the beauty of this. And if you were lucky enough to win it, I always thought I would, if we ever won it, I would know, okay, I got the answer. And once we won it, I realized I'm further from the answer than I ever thought, because there was a lot of luck that went into this, and you never know when it's going to help you or when it's going to hurt you.
Jay, Colin said on Wednesday that he doesn't actually remember much about being at PPG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh 4 years ago, but
good.
For you, he did get minutes in those first two games here, and then obviously throughout the tournament on that run. I mean, seeing him progress over the years, how much do you think he learned from that experience of being in the tournament for the first time and getting minutes?
Minutes in the NCAA tournament are so valuable. It's so unique. It's the same way with the Big East tournament. They're different. But going through all this, the media, the practices day before with people watching, we had to explain that to our guys, in open practice. Most of them hadn't experienced it. And I think the minutes you get in games in the NCAA tournament are invaluable. And as you can accrue those minutes, that really helps you. And that's why I think he's so valuable to us in this tournament.
Got a Zoom question here from Patrick Waring, NBS Sports. Patrick, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. How you doing today?
Hey, Patrick.
Hey, I got a question for you. I was thinking about what you were saying with recruiting. I mean, obviously, you recruit the DMV area well, probably so well that I'm sure the local teams would like you to stay out of the area a little bit. But what is it about this area? Can you talk about why you think you've been successful recruiting, and just talk about some of the talent? Like, I mean, for instance, you have Justin and Brandon on your team currently, and you've had a lot of other guys in the past.
It's real simple. The high school leagues, and there's many of them, are very well organized. The culture in the DMV area is a basketball culture. The best athletes in that area play basketball, as opposed to there are other areas where the best athletes play football, and then some of them play basketball. And the education, there's so many great high-level educational institutions in that area. You just get the perfect mix of great student, great families, and high-level coaching. I think that's one of the most fertile areas in the country because of those three factors.
Thank you, Coach. Nice job.
Thank you, guys. Who won?